This is a great time of year with all sorts of activities in our parish. The youth are reminded that the deadline is near for registration for NCYC up in Indianapolis, and also for the Yes to Life event that takes place here in Bloomington. Please check the bulletin for details about these most worthy activities to engage in. Our ministry fair is next weekend. There's a wonderful insert in the bulletin that lists all the different activities that are going on in the parish, activities that you might wish to be a part of. I encourage you to read that section of the bulletin carefully, and when you come back next week, there will be booths and displays on each of the aspects of our parish life, and you can talk with those responsible to see if you might be signing up for one or more of those ministries and services. The life chain that takes place usually on Respect Life Sunday, that is today, has been canceled because of the inclement weather. If you're looking for something extra to do for Respect Life Sunday, I'll be giving a talk on the life issues over at St. Jude's at 12:30 this afternoon. All are welcome. Oktoberfest is the social event of the season. Tickets are available for sale at the gym entrance. Those tickets are priced quite affordably. And let's take advantage of this opportunity to get together as a parish community. Special welcome to all of those who are new to St. John's, especially those who are visiting, and also to those who were drawn here this morning by the Holy Spirit, those who are looking for something substantial in life, something lasting. You found the right place. You found a place where God's eternal word is preached and taught, the place where the Lord himself is present in the sacraments, body and blood, soul and divinity, in the sacrament of the Holy Eucharist. And you found a very supportive community of faith to help you along your way. Welcome to St. John the Apostle Catholic Church. We've been talking in recent weeks, and we'll continue to talk about stewardship. We've learned that stewardship is our response to the good things that the Lord has done for us. We spoke about the qualities of a good steward: gratitude, responsibility, generosity. We spoke about the opposite of stewardship being selfishness, and the difference between someone who is selfish and someone who is humble. Next week, we'll talk about stewardship of talent, and in the following week, stewardship of time and stewardship of treasure. Today, because it is Respect Life Sunday, I want to talk about stewardship of human life, stewardship of the human person. When I look back at my family album, and when I see the photograph of when I made my entrance into my family, that photograph shows me being carried into the house, Mom and Dad and my brothers and sisters. I'm reasonably certain that if you're over the age of 35, your first picture is something like that, a picture that was taken a day or so after your birth. But if you're under 35, or 30 even, chances are your first picture is nothing like my first picture. Your first picture was taken by an ultrasound. You made your appearance to the world even before you were born. And your parents were quite proud of that picture. They showed it to everyone. They even had T-shirts made up of your picture and mouse pads and all sorts of things. You are part of the ultrasound generation, if you're under about 35 years old. That picture, that ultrasound picture of you was probably taken about 18 to 20 weeks into gestation, the second trimester. That picture shows you as a unique human being, a member of the human family. If that picture, that ultrasound, had been taken in the first trimester, the features would have not been as clear or as defined, but would that make you any less of a human person at that moment in gestation? And in fact, if we could go back to the early days, right after conception, though the features would not be recognizable, all of the evidence would tell us that at that moment you had your own DNA and that you were developing not into some other species, nor were you developing simply as a blob of tissue, but you were developing into the unique human being that you are now. There is continuity between who you were at the moment of conception and who you are now. If we went back to the earliest moments of gestation, would you be any less than an individual, any less than a member of the human family? I think not. Our church thinks not. Common sense dictates not. As even those of us who are older than 35 learned from Horton the elephant, a person's a person, no matter how small. Catholics are called to be compassionate, tireless, and consistent in our affirmation of the dignity of the human person from the moment of conception until natural death. We are called to be the voice of those who have no voice, to be advocates for those who cannot speak on their own. And when we get the pushback that you Catholics need to be more concerned about that baby once it's born than when it's in the womb, we might remind the person who so objects that the Catholic Church in this country is second only to the federal government in providing social services for the poor, the less fortunate, and the needy. We have skin in the game in taking care of people at every point along the spectrum of life. And because we put so much into taking care of the poor and the needy, we have the credibility to speak out on behalf of the unborn. We are called to be compassionate, tireless, and consistent in speaking out. Compassionate. We are called to be compassionate and to reach out to those who have committed the sin of abortion, those who have participated in that sin. The numbers suggest that there are probably some among us who have taken part. And if that's you, please know that the Lord of all mercies does not want you to be carrying that around with you for the rest of your life. If you haven't yet confessed it, please do. You will find that the Lord is more than willing to lift that burden, that heavy burden, from your shoulders. If you know somebody who is burdened, encourage them to make a good confession. Encourage them to look to the Rachel ministry of our church that reaches out to those who have been harmed physically, psychologically, spiritually by abortion. We are called to be compassionate in reaching out to those who are considering abortion, taking our place at the Planned Parenthood facility. On Tuesdays, as our parish wants to do during the 40 days of life, and on Thursday morning especially, which is the day when abortions are performed at that facility here in our town. I encourage those who are high school students and college students to be compassionate to your friends, especially those who get into trouble. Be compassionate by reminding them that there are options besides abortion, and that the church stands ready to help. All of the churches in the Bloomington area, all of our Catholic churches are committed not to turn anybody away and to find the resources that will help that young person bring the pregnancy to term and bring that beautiful life into the world. You are ambassadors if you are on a high school or college campus, ambassadors for life. We are called to be compassionate, tireless, and consistent. Tireless in speaking out and in speaking the truth that abortion is the most important social issue of our day. Yes, there are other important issues: poverty, health care, education, foreign policy. But abortion is the most important because we are called to defend always the innocent. And how we defend the innocent will direct all of our other actions in regard to others in our society. Many of us notice the callousness in our society today, the lack of courtesy, the lack of empathy, the lack of decency, much of which can be traced back to the way in which we think of the most vulnerable, the unborn, the way in which we have an attitude toward the unborn that is schizophrenic, because that child pictured in the ultrasound can be taken through one door to receive the most wonderful medical treatments that will help that child through any birth defects that there are. Or that child in the ultrasound can be taken through another door through which there is no return. We are called upon to be tireless in speaking out against abortion because it is the most important issue of the day. There are other issues that are important. This one is the most. Is this just semantics? I think not. There are many examples in our human experience where there is a hierarchy of importance. If you were diagnosed with certain types of diabetes, for instance, Your doctor would tell you that it's important to take insulin. It's also important to exercise and eat right. But what's the most important thing to do? Clearly, without that insulin, you'll be in bad shape. It's foundational. That very word, foundational, calls to mind the building of a house. And anyone in the building trades will tell you that it's important to have a solid foundation. And it's also important to have a good HVAC system, a good plumbing system, a good shingles on your roof. But what's most important? How long will those shingles and all the other systems last if not built on a firm foundation? How long will our society last if we continue to allow violence to be done to those who are most vulnerable? For this reason, we must be tireless. We must be unambiguously pro-life. It is impossible to be a good Catholic and be pro-abortion. It is impossible to be a good Catholic and to vote for a candidate who is blatantly and unreservedly pro-choice. A vote for such a candidate is surely a vote for the culture of death, and the person who votes for such a candidate will surely have to render an account of his or her stewardship of human life. To be clear, being a pro-life candidate is not sufficient to deserve a vote. There are other issues, there are other qualifications to consider. But being a pro-choice, pro-abortion candidate is sufficient on its own to disqualify a candidate from receiving our vote, because abortion is the most important issue. It is a foundational issue. We are called to be compassionate, tireless, and consistent in being pro-life. Let's remember, no violence ever for our cause, period, full stop. No violence. And no chemical contraceptives either. No chemical contraceptives either. They affect many things, including making implantation impossible. Check out the product sheet that is to be found with those chemicals, and they will tell you exactly the same thing. There are other reasons to stay away from contraception, but the most important reason is the abortifacient nature of all chemical contraceptives presently on the market. The ultrasound is a way of looking within, seeing what is below the surface. The ultrasound is a means by which we can look within and see the beauty of the human person, and in so doing, to give glory and honor to God, the author of life, the one who creates each of us in his image and likeness. On this Respect Life Sunday, may each of us take the time to look within, to examine the issues, to examine our heart, to recognize and to appreciate both the beauty of God's likeness in the face of every human being, born and unborn, and to be staunchly resolved to use every one of our God-given gifts and talents to be good and faithful stewards of the gift of human life. In so doing, we will simply be doing our duty.